Everybody who lives on the planet has had some type of trauma happen. Trauma, it can come in the form of the loss of a loved one. It could come in the form of the loss of a job or the loss of your mobility or your health. Trauma presents itself in many ways. The way we respond to trauma is always interesting, and it's different for every individual. As we look at grief and the loss of a loved one, or the loss of health, or the loss of mobility, trauma can have a very definite, definable cause. Something happened. In many ways, this is not evident to the people around us because they don't know by looking at us that we've been impacted by something that's shaken us to our core. That type of confusion, disorientation, and loss of direction and maybe loss of purpose is related to different responses that each one of us bring based on our relationship with ourselves and our situations before the event and after it. Why do people respond so differently? Well, that's the crux of what this video and this video series are about. I'm Dr. Jean Palmer Maloney, and I am going to be taking you on a bit of a journey as we explore the transformation from grief to purpose. The Spiritual Alchemy group, our community, is about finding, bonding with, and serving one another as we transform from grief to purpose. There are going to be 3 videos in this series in addition to this intro. The first of the videos is to give you more of my own personal story and how I faced a very traumatic event and how it's progressed, how I am transforming from grief to purpose. The second video is more about other people's stories and how to take a spiritual alchemy approach to transformation. The purpose of the Spiritual Alchemy community is to find, to bond together, to build, and to serve the community of people who are striving to transform from grief to purpose. Grief is an interesting word. Grief is the overwhelming sense of loss and sadness. And I think if you consider a continuum from disappointed to sad, to sorrowful, to woeful, to grieving, there are many different ways that grief can present itself, but many times grief is associated with solitude. Many times people are grieving by themselves. There are many different ways to regain your sense of direction, because truly after a traumatic event, when you're in the midst of grief, you're almost in a fog, similar to the fog of war. You know you're moving from one day to the next, but you don't really know how or why. You can do little things like go to the grocery store or maybe fill the car with gas, but to take on challenging, thoughtful jobs at that point in time, it's hard. So how do you refill the hole in your heart? How do you regain a sense of direction? One of the things that makes it terribly difficult is if you're doing this more in isolation than with a community. And it's the community aspect that spiritual alchemy is all about. Spiritual alchemy is about helping you explore the journey and about empowering you and encouraging you to transform from grief to purpose. But not you by yourself, you with a community of people with similar interests and similar desires to find meaning. As we explore this, there'll be a number of stages that I introduce you to and a number of different ways to look at the journey. But it's a journey. And although it might have had a very clear beginning, the end is rather without end, because we're always experiencing things tied to the cycle of life. It's a process.